We gonna get to that. That was some bullshit.
That's why a whole era of people grew up thinking that the mafia got these powers, like the New York mafia is after you, and you living under assumed name in Idaho, and
they just gonna find you. It's like. What's up, y'all? I'm your host, Chris Ellis, and this is The Main Ingredient with Chris Ellis. Today, we're discussing a classic, and I'm discussing it with a Bay Area filmmaker. He's accomplished, he's established, he got his own business cracking. My boy, Pharoah Powell. How you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's all good, man. I appreciate it, man. You know, we hadn't seen each other since one of our colleagues' film debuted in Berkeley.
Yes.
Berkeley. And that came out, packed house. That came out well. And I think you were a part of, you were in the film.
Yeah, I was in it and helped them produce it.
You was actually in the film. But it feels like
y'all slide my mug up in there every now and then.
But I felt like, were you part of the, not just the cast, but did you help shoot it or?
No, I helped her produce. I helped her put everything, the schedule.
Okay, I felt like you was a part of the film.
And everything like that, yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. Okay, so today we're discussing a piece of the action, and you picked that film.
Yes, indeed.
So won't you go ahead and tell us first why you picked that film?
I picked that film because blaxploitation, the 70s, that's just my thing.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But films like A Piece of the Action, Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again, definitely tapped into that genre, but on a higher level.
Yeah.
The storytelling, because it's literally starred two of the biggest black stars of all time, and they were mega stars at that time. Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier.
They were huge.
Yeah. So I just like, it's like, for instance, a lot of people when they come to hood movies, a lot of people, Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society is their favorites.
Yeah,
but my favorite is Fresh.
Okay, I love Fresh
because it was a hood movie, but it was a complicated story.
I love Fresh. See, you think like
you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So I like hood movies, but I want a higher level.
Yeah, you like the complexities of the stories and the characters. I'm the same exact way.
I want you to make a hood movie, but I want it to be artistic. I'm the same time.
Exact way. When I remember some years ago, I watched No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
And I was telling my partners about it. They thought I was losing my mind. I said, y'all just got to watch the movie.
Nah, that's one of the best movies ever made.
It's a dope movie. Yeah. And that's where my mind is always at when it comes to movies. I'm looking at scripts, characters, screenplay, and I'm really looking at also the environment where they shot it. So like I take all that in account.
Production values, everything.
The production value, man, because as a filmmaker, that matters to us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we doing Piece of the Action. It was directed by Sidney Poitier, written by Charles Blackwell, and music was done by legendary Curtis Mayfield. Man, that's major.
One of the all-time great. So you literally had some of the rawest dudes of all time.
Oh my God,
came together on one project.
Yeah, that's major. So it was like I said, it was starring Sidney Poitier as Manny Durrell, Bill Cosby as Dave Anderson, James Earl Jones, the legend, as Joshua Burke.
Like, once again, some of the rawest dudes ever.
Detective Joshua Burke, Denise Nicholas as Lila French, Hope Clark as Sarah Thomas, Tracy Reed as Nikki McLean, Titos Vandis as Bruno, the Italian thug. I guess he's Italian. But a quick side note, which I didn't know until I started researching on this. Will Smith wanted to do a remake of this movie in 2002, starring Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence.
Yes.
I was like, wow. And I'm thinking 2002. Oh, they had just came off of all that success of Life.
Yes.
This movie, if he'd have remade it at that time, would have been huge, bro. I don't know what didn't happen to not make that happen. But if you can imagine them coming off the success of Life, those two.
With Will Smith as the producer.
Will Smith and Overbrook Entertainment, his production company, putting this out, a remake, it would have been a smash.
Been dope. And Martin had already showed in Life that he could play. Because, when in these various films, because, there's 3 in the series, even though
it's a trilogy.
They play different characters.
Yes.
Even though the wife repeats in 2 of the movies.
She sure does.
But, so they're not necessarily a trilogy because different characters, but they're considered a trilogy.
Yeah.
But somebody has to be the funny guy, and one guy has to play it more straight.
Correct.
And Martin has showed in life that he could play the straight guy to Eddie Murphy's, comedy.
Yeah.
So it would have been dope.
No, it would have been dope.
They should still do it. Let me tell it.
I think that it can still get done now. I think that it's a tragedy that it didn't get done at that time. Because like I said, the success of Life, that movie would have been huge if they'd have done a remake at that point in time.
Is me and my partners always argue about top 10 black movies ever. And I always throw Life in there.
Life is amazing.
And if you and your friends argue about that, don't be semantics. Like I had one cat tell me The Color Purple can't count because Spielberg directed. Like let's not stop playing.
Yeah.
A black movie is a black movie.
A black movie is a black movie.
And it's one of those things, I can't necessarily define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah. I agree. I think we're having that discussion now amongst movie critics and filmmakers, like what is considered a black movie.
Because like Coming to America is a black movie.
Correct. But some people consider anything with a black leading actor in it a black movie, even though it might be produced by a white company, written by a white, writer and stuff. So it's
some
weird
say
with
only
me.
The director. So I say in that case, then Fantastic Four or Toy Story is black movies.
Correct.
Because Tim Story is the director.
Correct. So it's kind of weird how we judge what's considered a black movie.
It's hard to define.
It's hard to define.
But we know it when we see it.
You know it when you see it. You knew when you saw Beverly Hills Cop. This is a black movie. Eddie Murphy in it, he acting black, talking shit. You already knew what it was.
Right.
You already knew what it was.
Just same thing like Coming to America. That's one of the blackest movies ever.
Oh, of course.
But I think John Landis directed it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Color Purple. Spielberg
Color
directed.
Purple is Spielberg. Yeah.
Those are black movies, and stop that if we say different.
And they're just classics. Yeah. It's like they're timeless. They're classics.
Like you can throw them on now. Like The Family Gathering, you can throw them on now. We're gonna all sit there and watch it as if we ain't seen it 89 times.
Forever,
already.
So the movie starts off in Chicago of August 1975, and Bill Cosby is breaking into a consumer credit corporation. He breaks in, he takes the money. We gonna address this now. He jumps 12 stories.
Bill was a raw man back then.
Into a truck. He jumped perfectly into 12 stories. No wind, no Chicago wind blows him to the left or to the right, which would kill him. He jumps perfectly straight down into a truck 12 stories to land without hurting himself, get out of the back of the truck, and drives off smoothly.
The only reason why
Can we address that?
The only reason why I'm gonna give Bill that, 2 reasons. One, I know Bill was an athlete. He ran track in college.
That's true.
And 2, I see Tom Cruise doing all kinds of wild things on Mission Impossible.
That's a good point.
So, and I know somebody might be like, wait, Tom Cruise been an action star. Bill was a comedian. No, we ain't gonna go there. We gonna give Bill his flowers, even though
12 stories, bro. When they showed the establishing shot of how high he was, I said, "Oh hell no!" Do you know how high 12 stories is? And he put his arms out, and he kind of looked like he timed it, and he said, "Whoop!" And I said, "Oh my God, he's gonna kill himself."
We're gonna let Bill and his stuntman have that one.
Bill could have. It could have been 17 mattresses in that truck. He would have still hurt himself jumping 12 stories.
Bill Cosby was so raw in the 70s.
Bill Cosby was raw.
That he defied physics. That's just how raw that man was.
He defied physics. Okay. So now the movie jumps into July 1976, where Manny and his crew are watching some mob guys drive off from a building, and they follow the mob guys to a home, and they stage a fake raid on the home, and the mob guys try to get rid of all the evidence because they think the FBI or police are coming in to take all of, to catch him red-handed. So here's another pet peeve I got in this movie. The mob, one of the mob guys takes the money and hands it to the old black maid as she's walking out, right? Thinking it's going to be a raid. Find out it's not a raid. They got played. How the hell did that line up that perfectly? He caught her as she was walking out. He was like, hey, you getting ready to leave? Take this money with you. You know how perfect everything would have to be for that to happen? She
was a slickster too. So
She was.
So I'm gonna assume that she manipulated it. Once again, they define physics and logic. But it worked.
Logic more than anything.
But in essence to that, getting ahead of ourselves, the part that pissed me off is when they found her.
Yeah. And see, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we're
going to get to that. That was some bullshit.
That's why a whole era of people grew up thinking that the mafia got these powers, like the New York mafia is after you and you living under assumed name in Idaho and they're
just going to find you. It's like Copenhagen. They found her in Copenhagen, Denmark.
And these, the hitmen that they would send would just be unstoppable and stuff. And so we grew up
believing that. Yeah, we grew up believing that.
But as an adult watching it now, I'm like, there's no way in the world them dudes would have found
this little small mob crew would have found a black lady. First of all, they thought she was an old lady, so they only knew her with the old lady look and the wig and all that stuff. You found the younger version of her in a whole nother country.
On a different continent.
Come on, bro. Like, those are the things that's like, okay, I get it's 1977.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make this murder case. I mean, not murder case, but crime mystery story happen. So they adding in some stuff. But it's just like, these are coincidences that just would not happen in real life.
What do they call it? Plot armor?
Yeah. It's like, it just would not happen this way. So that was one of my pet peeves. Now, mind you.
But this is a lesson for me as a filmmaker that sometimes, because, when we writing scripts, this and that, you ever been stuck on something like that don't make sense?
Yes.
To the point where you almost abandon the project because you can't make it make sense.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to have convenient coincidences to move your story forward.
No, you're right. You're right. Sometimes when you can't figure it out, you just got to make the coincidence happen.
Yeah.
And it might not make no sense to nobody, but you had to move the story along, which they did in this movie. They kind of had to make it happen like that. Because I'm like, he was running, the mafia dude had the money and he was going into a room as he saw her. What are the chances that he gives her the money?
And that worked so perfectly with the heist. But also if you can't figure out how to wrap up the story, don't be afraid to end on a cliffhanger.
That's a good point.
No, because I was watching that new Tyler Perry joint last night. I was up. It came on at midnight.
Okay.
And it was on Amazon. And basically, when the end came, I was kind of like, and then I was like, you know what? He couldn't figure out how to wrap it up.
Couldn't figure it out.
So it's just,
and those things do happen. I like I said, it's 19s. I'll grade on a curve when it comes to these old time classics because people wasn't really breaking down in detail scripts. You didn't have
like Siskel and Ebert yet.
Yeah, it's like
that makes sense.
It's continuity issues in the 70s movies, so I give him a pass on certain things. But it's just like so many things had to come into play perfectly in this movie for this to actually be a movie.
Well, see, the thing is, they did have an advantage. That's not to take away from their legend, but like right now, if a movie drop, I can go on YouTube and find 10 people sawing it apart. You know what I'm saying? Then you got cinema scenes, you got all that. So people, the modern audience is more critical.
Yes.
So some of them, what do you say, suspend disbelief wouldn't work in the films that we're working on now. People would be like, oh, you took me out the movie when they did that. When they did that, I was, whereas we watch movies in the States that we'd be like, oh, wow. So it was preposterous.
Yeah.
But we were less critical then.
But the one thing I know I love about being a filmmaker and watching these films and reviewing them is that it does make me pay so much more attention to detail. So it sharpens my pen when I write.
Yes.
I make sure I'm paying attention to continuity and everything. And I think if I wasn't in filmmaking, I wouldn't care about that type of stuff.
Right. You just be entertained.
It's just entertainment. But as a filmmaker, I pay attention to that stuff. I care about that stuff. I don't even need a continuity expert on set because I'm that person. I'm paying attention to everything.
I dwell on it too.
I pay attention to everything by actors. Hey man,
remember Jason's lyric?
Yeah, I remember Jason's lyric.
So at the end of Jason's lyric, they pull up, Eddie Griffin's character comes over and says, "Man, Josh killed whoop-de-whoop, this and that." And I was saying, how did he know all that? He was outside. And I thought about it. They didn't want to use a voiceover. When I first watched it, I'm like, how did he know all that? He was outside. But later on, as a filmmaker, when I watched it again, I was like, oh, they didn't want to use narration, this and that. And that was a way to bring the story together. And I found myself doing that, having to do that, having the character say, "Hey man, did you know?" and say, just in case anybody's watching, and if I lost them,
right.
This guy could casually explain to someone else, but he's really explaining to the audience.
Yeah,
but in the 70s, though, they weren't afraid to use narration.
No, they wasn't.
They tell us now, don't use narration. If you use narration, then the story isn't weak. But some of them raw movies in the 70s all had some form of narration.
Yeah, of course.
And you're sitting there like, okay. Even Goodfellas. Goodfellas had a ton of narration.
And that was in the 90s.
But they say, don't use narration. That's a sign that your story is weak.
Yeah. I've heard that before, that it means that, you're being lazy with the script.
Menace Society had Menace. So Menace Society and Goodfellas, two of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. And they both have narration. But they tell us.
I don't subscribe to, I subscribe to, if it needs it, put it in there. Now, granted,
don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. But granted, don't put it in all your movies. But don't be afraid to, if it moves the story along and tells a better part, tells a story in a better way.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because a film like Menace to Society and Goodfellas, they needed that,
and it really works.
Take that narration out their movies, trash.
Yeah,
like it could be the same exact movie. Take out the narration, trash. The narration moved those movies along and gave the audience the understanding that they needed on an entertainment value. Because as directors, we kind of know what's going on because we make movies. But your regular moviegoer, you got to explain shit to them.
Yeah. Because I've shown movies to people and be like, what you think? And they're like, I honestly didn't know what was going on.
They don't understand.
Well, when dude did it, and I'm breaking down, I'm like, okay, they can't read my mind.
They don't be understanding.
Let me go back and add a little something or
That's what the narration is for, to make it easier for them to digest, to understand, to break it down mentally to where they can say, oh, okay, I understand where they were trying to go with this. You know what I'm saying? So it's now in the movie is September 1976. And it's a man leaving the bank with a briefcase full of money. Dave, Bill Cosby's character, is it looks like he's in a city worker's uniform on the street. He somehow, with all hundreds of thousands of people walking around Chicago streets, he's able to knock the guy out with the briefcase, knock him down into the underground, and rob him like that.
And that Bill Cosby, boy, he was a bad man in the 1970s.
Bill Cosby, so that means in the very beginning of this movie, we saw Bill Cosby do 2 crimes and Manny do 1. And it just, everything just lined up too perfect. That's really the only thing I got to say. It's not, I guess some of the stuff could happen with criminals, but it was like, there was no hiccups. Everything went super perfect.
These the best criminals of all time, though.
Super perfect. So, it was just too perfect.
These was the Avengers of criminals.
Yeah, but it's just hard to, it's hard to.
But I mean, even worse than the criminals, the fact that some kind of way James Earl Jones wouldn't have been a regular take. He'd have been Batman. To have figured this out the way he did.
And that's what we get into the next scene. The next scene, Dave is out at the club and he gets a letter from the bartender from Detective Burke saying that I know what you did, and if you need to meet at this place, blah, 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 blah. And Manny is kicking it with his girl at the house, and the doorman brings him a letter saying the same thing. You guys need to meet up at this hotel room, blah, 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 blah. Another nitpick I got is they never explained how Detective Burke knew they did all this shit.
Just the greatest detective ever.
Yeah, it's just like
there's Sherlock Holmes, there's Batman, and there was Detective Burke.
Yeah, and it's just
they all was there.
I could get past all the coincidences that made this movie work. I can't, for the life of me as a filmmaker, figure out why they didn't explain how Detective Burke knew about all these crimes and who did them in a city with 5 million people in it.
He just was wily, as they describe.
You got GDs and vice lords killing each other, but you know about all these crimes these two dudes are doing.
Well, he was an older detective.
He wasn't older. He was getting ready to retire.
So he was wiser.
He was wiser.
Like I said, there's Sherlock Holmes, there's Batman, and then there was him.
When I was watching this, man, it just kind of I started getting a headache over trying to figure this out.
Disbelief.
It was just like, so here's the thing. I felt like they had enough time and resources, even in the 70s, to explain how he knew they were doing this stuff. I feel like they could have explained
it. To that, right? Like growing up in the Black household, everybody's seen these movies, right?
Yes.
Everybody saw the trilogy, right?
Yes.
But there's a reason why Uptown Saturday Night and Let's Do It Again are the ones that people really watch more, and they don't necessarily watch A Piece of the Action as much, because A Piece of the Action took more time to develop the backstory, even though they didn't really develop Detective Burke's backstory, showing Manny and showing all them in these crimes, showing them kicking it with their ladies and this and that. People say it's slower.
Right. And it was.
Because unfortunately, sometimes with our particular community, if ain't nobody getting hit upside the head immediately, or if it don't come in with a bang, and it takes any time for pacing or development of characters, people will say it's slow. It's this and that, right? So I think maybe due to pacing and timing, they had already took so much time on Bill's and Sidney's backstories that they just Detective Burke has superpowers.
Yeah.
We just jump right in.
I just did not like that part of the story.
It's like, remember I said my favorite hood movie was Fresh.
Yeah, Fresh.
I also love Paid in Full.
Right.
But people will say, it was slow. It kind of dragged. Like, no, they were developing the story.
Yeah, developing the characters. You
so
I know think, who the characters are.
I'm assuming that maybe they sacrificed some of Detective Burke's backstory.
Oh, they definitely did.
In order to move the movie along, to not lose the audience.
They definitely spent this is how I feel about, as a filmmaker and as a grown person watching this now, I definitely feel like they spent too much time on the kids, and they could have dedicated some of that time to Detective Burke's backstory. Because when they started dealing with the kids, there were some long ass scenes with those kids, bro.
Yeah,
and they were kind of dragging out. They had random people talking that wasn't supposed to be talking.
Kids, what was happening though?
Yeah, they was like, Jack. And all them Jacks and slide time turkeys and stuff, they could have cut all that out and could have developed the story.
Bleeds,
yeah.
But kids was, Car Wash during that time period, Cooley High.
Yeah.
Maybe you had the Young Blood. You had a few other movies during that time. So I was thinking maybe kids was what was happening. And a couple of them kids went on to actually do some things like you see Shirley Ralph in there. And stuff like that.
Ernest Thomas.
Yeah. So it was I always like seeing them in the movies, the people that in the movies before they blew.
Because that was her first film. That was her first film.
And I think it's gonna work out for her, this acting career.
Yeah. So the fellas go to this hotel room that Detective Burke makes them go to. He doesn't show up. He calls them on the phone. They figure out they're being played. They become kind of allies. So he tells them to come to another meeting at a restaurant where they meet up with Lila French, Mrs. French. And she tells them that she has a letter from one of them saying they're going to dedicate resources and time to get 30 jobs for 30 kids that from some youth center that she works at. And the fellas are kind of like, what the hell? Like, so Burke calls them again while they're sitting down having lunch with Mrs. French and tells them, you in or you out? If you out, I'm just going to call the police. You're going to jail. They both say, we're in. But at that point, they become vigilant on finding out who Detective Burke is.
Because they're going to turn these tables.
Because they're going to turn the table. Because like Bill Cosby said, there ain't no way I can get up at 9 a.m. for the next 3 weeks. That's not happening.
Yeah, it's just either.
When she said 9 a.m., it was like 9 a.m. They was like, they ain't never heard of 9 a.m.
Yeah, po Bill. And I understand, because there was a time in my life that if I was up early like that, then that meant I was just getting in at that time.
Right.
Oh, now I'm up and at my 9 a.m. I'm at my desk already.
I remember a quote from Louis Armstrong where he said he's never heard of 4 p.m. He don't know what the fuck 4 p.m. is. Because, them jazz dudes, they go all night long. They getting home at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
4 p.m. they sleeping. Like, so them old school jazz dudes from the 40s and 50s, all night long.
Yeah.
They wasn't up at 4 p.m.
5, 6 o'clock, they getting up, having a shot or worse, and getting ready to do it again.
Yeah, man, Louis Armstrong said, I don't know what the hell 4 p.m. is. I don't know what y'all talking about.
Unfortunately, I do. 9 a.m. too.
So Dave and Manny meet up with the kids, and the kids is in there being loud, belligerent, smoking, drinking, playing around and stuff.
I'm talking about the bad dudes, bears on steroids.
Oh my God. Let's get into that. I love this movie so much, but it's too many flaws in it where I can't just go gloss over it. 1977, Sheryl Lee Ralph, supposed to be a teenager in this. She's 21 years old in reality.
Yeah.
Ernest Lee Thomas, Roger, for what's happening, is 28 years old.
Yeah. But 2 years later, he was still playing a teenager. We're going to let him cook.
Maybe you can explain to me, why couldn't Hollywood find teenage actors back then? Because a lot of movies was like this. A lot of those teenagers in the 70s was really grown-ass people. They just looked very young. So why do you think that Hollywood just didn't get teenage actors?
Well, one, we all looked older back then. And look at Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie 10 years ago looked younger than he did when he was with the Commodores.
That's true.
So, so it was hard to tell.
Shout out to Lionel Richie.
But I think just like now, it's just a sincere lack of effort. Like, for instance, there's a movie, it was on Amazon a few years ago. It's called Imperial Courts.
Saw that. I did see it.
And I actually enjoyed the movie. And but a friend of mine said, you got the Watts Playhouse, you got all these actors South Central. They didn't have to go get a cat from England.
Yes. It was the dude from England.
To play a dude in Watts. They Hollywood. And he was like, Hollywood. And I started thinking it. And then later on when Snowfall came, even though it just nailed the part, I think he should have got all the awards.
Oh, yeah.
In the back of my mind, I was always like, you couldn't find a 19 or 20-year-old in South Central that could have also played this part. Even though,
point.
But when you say critique like that, it's like you criticizing him. But no, he actually nailed that thing, right? But I fail to believe that you had to go halfway across the world. And just like in this case, there was teenagers in Chicago
that they could have used.
Who could have played
They actually could have used them.
Because in fact, most of the young people in there, even though I don't know the other ones' ages, were obviously full-grown adults.
You can clearly see that these are adults playing kids.
So yeah, that's a thing.
But it's the thing that I noticed, like in the 70s, the teenagers looked like adults. So I'm like, what?
From the way they dressed,
everything. It was almost like, let's just get some adults that look young, throw them in some weird looking clothes that teenagers wear, have them doing silly shit, like they had the kids in the class falling on the floor and just doing dumb shit. And it's like, we'll call them teenagers. And it's kind of weird because it's even in Dangerous Minds, Michelle Pfeiffer and them, There's a dude, I want to say he got killed, Enrique or Manny or whatever his name was. It was like an older Hispanic dude in the class. Mm-hmm. That dude was the same age as Michelle Pfeiffer in the movie. But he was playing a teenager. And it's like, why didn't you just go get a teenager? Like, why are you guys getting full-grown adults to play teenagers? They got wrinkles in their face.
Maybe it was a SAG. Maybe it was a SAG.
Was that a SAG issue?
Yeah, like, hey, we can't have this. I don't know, because they went to extremes. You either had a Gary Coleman type dude, or D from What's Happening,
Emmanuel Lewis,
kids, or I was 20-somethings. Playing kids. There was no, I guess if you were 14 or 15, you just didn't have no.
You shit out of luck.
Yeah, you unless you were like a midget or something.
Yeah.
You know? Shirley Ralph was definitely.
She was 21.
I didn't realize she was that young.
Yeah.
Because I know she had to be young because 20 years later, she still looked youthful.
Oh, she looks great now. But she's 65 now.
She obviously was no parts of a teenager.
No, nah. She was a fully developed woman. She had a young girl's voice. She played it to the T. Speaking of Shirley Ralph is an accomplished actress, but she's a theatrically trained actress. Mm-hmm. So the only issue I had with her, and Shirley, look, I got love for you, but I got to say this. When she speaks,
she
projects. And it sounds like she's acting. That's the only thing I got to say about in this particular movie about Shirley Ralph's character is like she speaks so eloquently and so perfectly with every word. It's like nobody in the hood in that situation with them badass kids, they wouldn't have been speaking like that.
But two things though is that for those of y'all that might not realize, when you come from a theater background, in order for people in the back of the theater to hear you, you have to speak in a style of speaking that's called projecting. But that's not a realistic way of talking. So it's noticeable if you into that. But another thing is that even now when she's comfortable, she has a Caribbean accent.
Yes, because she's from the Caribbean.
So maybe just like a lot of the British actors, to get rid of their back home accent, they enunciate perfectly.
That's true.
And they speak in a manner that sometimes you'd be like, in fact, that was the thing with John Boyega. That was his name in Watts, playing in Imperial. He didn't sound like any cat I knew from Watts.
Right.
That's what I'm like.
The people that's from that area, they know the real from the fake. Yeah, they know the real from the fake.
Saying that maybe that might have been the case with her is that trying to overcome her Caribbean accent, she was using her American. Well, if she learned, she probably would have had perfect dictation.
Yeah.
It's like my daughter's a newscaster. Me and her talking voice and her, hi, I'm Shalika Powell and I'm here to bring you and her news voice is hilarious.
It's totally different.
But they're trained, it's called a mid-regional. It's a mid-regional dialect. It's an actual accent. And that's why if you turn on the news here in the Bay, you turn on the news in San Antonio, Texas, you turn on the news in Philadelphia, and all the anchors have the same tones and inflections. It's considered a universal American accent. And they all, like if you go to journalism school, you will learn, if you're going to do broadcast journalism, you all learn this voice. And to see my daughter and her normal I know her normal speaking voice,
how she normally
and
speaks.
then see her on the news, in her news voice, it's never not funny to me.
Yeah.
Because it's nowhere near how she talks.
Right. No, I get it.
At one point, she was a news anchor in Nebraska.
Wow. That's a whole different ball game right there.
And I can't even imitate the news accent.
I can imagine.
I was like, well, the people would be so shocked at the moment they say cut, and she like, oh, I ain't on the air. Hey man, what's happening with these?
Yeah.
When she get to talking for
Go
real.
right back. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of getting back to the Imperial Courts guy, and even with Snowfall, with Damson, a lot of the English actors, the black English actors that are getting hired to do jobs that could have been given to Americans, a lot of it comes down to they're just a lot cheaper. They're willing to go cheaper.
Yeah,
like
much cheaper.
You can pay him $1,000 a day, or you can pay somebody from England $400 a day. that can have the same exact accent.
Straight economics.
It's
economics. But in Damson's case, they brought in WC.
That's true.
Yeah, you know, like
dialect.
I guess he had to American, like, but somebody was like, he don't sound like he from the hood.
Yeah.
So they had to bring in South Central legend Dub C.
Yeah,
to for West Side Connection.
We have to remember too, people from other countries have been watching us talking movies for 100 years. They can mimic us perfectly.
Yeah,
we don't watch movies from England.
I can't do an Irish guy.
Yeah, I can't do none of that stuff.
But an Irish guy seen Menace. He seen Boys.
He's seen him 1,000 times.
So he could probably do me way better than I could do him.
And that's what people need to understand. They've been watching our movies.
But why bring him into me? You let me do me.
Let me do me. Yeah. It's honestly, it's an economic thing. It's a lot cheaper. And also, they're not coming over here with that ego. You gotta remember, as an American actor has an ego, especially they've been in stuff before. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna play no supporting actor. I was just a lead and blah blah blah.
Yeah, you ain't gonna talk to me any kind.
Yeah, you ain't gonna talk to me no type of way.
I just asked that you want something to drink. Yeah, still though, man.
My cousin's Cuba Gooding Jr. You can't talk to me like that.
But you know, that's another thing though. Like for instance, right now, Netflix 5 or 6 years ago used to have some independent black films on there, right?
Yes.
Now you can't find any independent black films. And the closest thing you can find to independent black films are all Nigerian films. And somebody told me that the licensing deals that they would give me or you, there's certain standard deals. Like
I didn't know that.
Like the minimum 2-year licensing deal is like $150,000. So if they were to take one of our films, that's what they would give us. But then they would also charge back, like they want to deliver it in 26 languages, stuff like that. And we would have to, you know.
That would be our responsibility to give it to them in that many languages.
Yeah. You know. And so, and if you ever had to close caption a film or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Regular closed caption is, you know, it's relatively cheap. Yeah. But have this dubbed in Mandarin, have this dubbed in have this dubbed in French. Yeah. You know, so but the Nigerian films, apparently they're licensing them for 20 or 30,000.
Okay.
So based on pure economics, if we're bringing an independent film that not necessarily has any star power, just a cool story, it'd be $100,000 cheaper to bring in the Nigerian dude under the same circumstances. And then the other thing is that they've kind of figured, because a lot of people don't realize this, when Netflix figures out that you're black, everything on your suggested, even if there's only one black character in the movie, that's what you will see the image for all that. So when the Netflix algorithm figures out that you're black, it's just going to show you black movies. And their thought process is, oh, black people is I'm going to watch. So they look. So if they think me and you are going to watch this Nigerian film simply because it has black people in it, and it's cheaper than, say, a dude from Detroit's film, then that's what they're going to go with. So the Africans, and the UK and the gentleman from the UK, they're plain and simply they're cheaper than us.
That's crazy.
There's certain things that me and you not gonna go for that they not tripping on. Right. You know, there might be certain things, a little microaggression or something like that. We might be like, hey, hold on, man. Hey man, this is some racist whoop whoop. Yeah. And then you know how it is in this industry. If you call out somebody doing you wrong, people will act like you're difficult to deal with. Yeah.
So they can bring Monique. What happened with Monique?
Exactly. Yeah. So if they can bring in some two dudes that look like us, who ain't gonna never trip, and is 5 times cheaper.
Yeah. It's economics. It's economics. And I understand as a filmmaker, economics does matter because you do have a budget and you try to stick to the budget. Yeah. And sometimes you don't have a choice. If you use your own money, you're just gonna run out of money. Sometimes you ain't got a choice but to stick to the budget.
Yeah. and budget is everything in this game. Like for instance, to me, one of the rawest dudes that ever pick up a camera was Hype Williams.
Yes.
And Hype Williams, he got a chance to do Belly. And he went dramatically over budget. Yes. And still didn't get, like some people watch Belly critical, and I'd be like, you can't really critique Belly because if you really listen to Hype, there were so many things that wanted to be added in. Like Nas was supposed to there were supposed to be parts in Africa with Nas. There was supposed to be
no African shots at all.
The interaction between DMX and the minister was really way more pronounced. There was way more, and it showed how DMX was supposed to go from I'm just getting close to him to kill him to actually being a true convert.
Right.
But the minister knew all along, like maybe 30-40% of the movie got cut.
Yeah. And I believe that. As a filmmaker, I know that's how it happens.
And basically, they never really gave Hype another chance at doing the movie.
And clearly they didn't even shoot the scenes and have a director's cut. Right. Nobody's never saw none of those scenes you talking about.
They just in the script.
They but nobody. They never got shot.
Been shot. It would have been so much more of an epic film.
It would have.
Back in the days when I was a kid, there was a movie called Heaven's Gate.
Yes,
and Heaven's Gate actually bankrupted the studio.
Oh, dang.
And I actually saw a version of it. It was about an hour and a half, right? And it was a completely idiotic movie. And they invested so much money and it flopped so badly that the studio literally went out of business.
Yeah.
Well, as an adult, they restored the full actual cinematic version. Like I said, the version I saw was an hour and a half. The full movie was actually 3 hours.
Oh, geez.
So they cut 50% of the movie.
Yeah.
So there was plot lines that didn't make any sense. There was characters that appeared and never saw again. But then the full story was like, oh, this is almost a masterpiece.
Yeah.
But somebody at the studio said, we over budget. Nobody's going to sit in the theater for 3 hours and watch this. And so they massacred it and it flopped.
Right.
And that's how I view Belly, that if only he could have shot the full vision.
Yeah.
But what amazes me, though, is that he never got another chance to do another one. Same thing with Matty Rich with the
Matty Rich. I remember Matty Rich.
Like all these raw cats, and that's the kind of curse. Like right now we're independent, but we both know that if we ever get a shot at the big money, we really might only got
one shot.
Yeah.
You got one shot. And you better make it work. You better something better happen with this one shot because you don't get a second. Matter of fact, speaking of Hype Williams, it's like I don't remember Hype. I remember his career damn near being over after Belly. Like I don't remember him doing a lot of music videos and none of that stuff.
Right.
Which was weird because he had done hundreds of music videos leading up to Belly.
And music videos is such a limited genre. For him to be so raw, it told me that he was really a visionary.
Yeah, he was more. You know? I always put him. This why I always. I know he was a film director and music director, but I always seen him more as a cinematographer. Yeah, because he saw the vision.
Yeah, things looked a certain way.
Everything looked a certain way. So I always saw him that way because I always said that like if I did a film and I wanted to make it more artistic, that's what I would go for as my actual DP. I would get Hype Williams to be my DP.
And speaking of cinematographers, I was looking at this person right here, Ernest Dickerson. He was Spike Lee's. He made Spike movies look so good that somebody finally said, well, dog, what you got? And that movie became Juice.
Juice, right.
Which gave the birth of.
Yes, indeed. So let's get back to the piece of the action. So Manny's girlfriend, Nikki, her parents pop up out of nowhere, which is kind of shady. You know, they pop up at Manny's house and they have an issue with Manny sleeping with their daughter, Nikki, because they're not married.
It's the 70s.
It's the 70s. And also, Manny looks like he's like mid-40s. Nikki look like she mid-20s. There's like a huge age difference.
Manny was getting to the bag, though.
Manny was getting to the bag, and Nikki saw, I got the sugar daddy right here. I'm about to shack up with him. And Nikki wasn't tripping.
But him and Pops was about, they went to school together.
Right. So that I think that's what kind of, other than them not being married, I think that also kind of might have what pissed off the mama too. Like, you an older dude smashing my baby.
Yeah, you got to make her respectable.
Yeah, you got to put a ring on her finger. We understand what's going on, but put a ring on her finger. So the moms was big tripping. You know, and they were church people because I think the dad was a pastor. So they came there with the aunt, Walona from Good Times.
Who was acting in the big Cab Calloway's daughter.
Right.
And that was that era, for context for the youngsters, that was an era where the pops would come to you, what are your intentions to my daughter?
What are your intentions? You had to go to Pops to get to the girl.
Yeah.
Back then, like you wasn't just.
You could pull up and home. You could pull up and say, "Hey, I'm outside."
No,
you had to park the car, get knocked. Pops come to the door first. Then you got to sit there. She's dressed. She's upstairs dressed, but Pop's got to have a few moments with you before.
He done already told her, sit in your room for 15 minutes. I need to talk to this dude.
Yeah, I need to see what's happening with him.
That's how stuff used to be. So we get to a scene where Barbara, who was Cheryl Lee Ralph, she goes off on the teacher, Mrs. Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to Cheryl Lee Ralph, the overacting. This scene was about 5 minutes of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And she was going off on Mrs. Thomas. But
I mean, to the point of, woo.
She made her cry. She made Mrs. Thomas cry. Mm-hmm. Said she had a vibrator at home. Like, this is the 70s. You can't be talking about vibrators. You can't be a student telling the teacher, go home to your vibrator in the 70s. That was crazy.
And let me qualify that. If you ever see 5 minutes of dialogue in one of my movies, it was filler. A distribution company must have said, we need this movie to be 80 minutes. And I looked up and it was 72.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a lot.
Somebody about to give a monologue.
That's a lot. That scene was about 5 minutes, and then it ended with Mrs. Thomas running out crying.
Mm-hmm.
She went to the cafeteria. Then Manny went behind her and was telling her, trying to calm her down and saying everything's going to be okay. And at this point, she was literally begging Manny to help her because she couldn't handle them kids, especially Barbara. Barbara was
off the hinges.
Barbara was a spark plug to a whole bunch of shit in that class.
A lot of it was completely like, all right, I see why you've been having problems in life.
You just angry. Like, you just an angry young girl. Because she wasn't a woman yet. She's still a kid, supposedly. So you just an angry young woman. And they never really touched on what Barbara's issue was. Mm-hmm. Why Barbara was so angry. That's another
guided missile aimed at the school every day.
But they never, especially in that particular scene when she really lit into Miss Thomas, it's like, why y'all didn't explain why Barbara was like, explain it. Maybe her dad beats her at home. Maybe she getting raped by her uncle or something like that. Like, what's making her so angry? Because she's a beautiful woman. I don't remember
a scene where they even alluded to what could be. Because sometimes in some of these type of movies, there'll be some allusion to what's going on. Hey, you going home? This and that. I can catch hell at home in the streets. Like, there's usually some type of, and there wasn't any context to
that was the good thing that they did in the movie, another movie from the 80s, The Breakfast Club. Mm-hmm. Like, all the kids had issues at home, but they explained all their issues.
Yes.
So you understood why they were the way they were. Mm-hmm. We never understood why Barbara was the way she was. Yeah. She was so angry and fired up about everything.
And she was borderline almost cartoonish.
It was like extra. It was super extra. It's just like, especially that particular scene where, like I said, it's like 5 minutes of dialogue where she just going off. You just some jive time ass teacher. You don't care about us niggas. That was another reason why I got to go back to her theatrical training. It's like the way she was saying nigga was like, that's not how black people say nigga. Us niggas in hell. Everything she was saying was so pronounced. It was just like, this is not a theater, ma'am. You don't have to say it like
a theater trained Caribbean born actress.
Right. You are not in the theater, ma'am. You do not have to talk. The teacher was like 2 feet in front of her. She was like, she was going.
But we got to make sure that the back rows
can hear. Got to make sure everybody else can hear.
Yeah.
I feel like at that time, Sidney Poitier, he should have dialed her down a little bit. Like,
just think, that might have been dialed down.
Don't say that. Like, damn,
she might have been so far out there that they finally was like, you know what, roll with it.
You know how crazy that is to think
and
about
as a
that?
Director, sometimes I've had people just sitting there murdering lines, not getting it, obviously unprepared, and finally just be like,
clearly unprepared.
You know what? We're going to work with it. We're looking like, you okay with that? And be like, you know what? It is what it is.
It is what it is. We got to move on to the next scene.
Because if we're still here 2 hours from now, it's not going to get any
wasted the whole day. You trying to do this one scene correctly.
That's the bane of being an independent director. That sometimes in your mind you have to say, I'll just make sure that the performances in the next scene are just so much better. Because you got to balance it out.
To outshine this bullshit. Clearly, because I feel like this was probably what happened. I feel like that scene and the dialogue is so long. It's a one take Jake. Like we got one shot to do all this shit. We can't keep doing this all day.
Right.
So 5 minutes of dialogue. Like
and shout out to my man. And shout out to my man Tyler. So when people be like, "Oh, he filmed 8 episodes of this in a week, or this in 2-3 days," that is one take.
Yeah, Tyler, keep it moving.
Like he did that one movie where he was in it and everybody was clowning the wigs. Like they had the Ball brother, Misha Brooks, and some type of flat top wig. Mm-hmm. Tyler even had this wig on himself. He was paying the district attorney or something.
Oh, yeah.
And they was like, "Oh, we filmed that movie." They filmed the movie in 4 days. And it was a Netflix film.
Yeah.
He did on Netflix. And I'm sitting there like, and to some people, how on earth can you film a whole feature film in 4 days? And I'm like, man, it was a
one take, Jake.
Yeah,
we got one shot.
Let's rip. Yeah. Let it rip.
And we'll cover up any mistakes with B-roll, but we not stopping. We gonna scene for scene for scene. Yeah. And any mistakes, B-roll gonna cover it.
And then he had a series on BET Plus called Bruh. And they filmed the whole, and they said the same thing. They did the whole season. His season was 20 episodes, and they did it in 4 days.
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm sitting there like,
woo,
okay. They was just giving cats the scenario and turn on the camera, and we just improv.
Probably, no script.
We just go.
Yeah, no script. It's like Tyler Perry became the 90s version of Master P in music. He did that in movies. Yeah. Because Master P was putting out 30 albums a month at one point in time, and 28 of them was garbage.
I heard at one time he was signing cats, taking the picture of the album cover, and they hadn't even hit the studio yet. Like they'll have us pose. We the Antioch brothers take the picture of that. Then we go into the studio and we just here go the beat. You freestyle, I freestyle. Somebody sing a hook, and ta-da! There's the album.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Tyler kind of doing that, though, if you think about it. He kind of...
And that's the knock I be having sometimes. Like, I don't have no knock on him because that's just his style.
That's his style.
And he's unapologetic with it. He'll say, this is how I get out.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
I don't need him to make a Star Trek film. I don't need him to do Independence Day because he's quite clearly said, this is, in the immortal words are too short. If this is what sells, I will stick with it.
Yeah.
But I do get mad sometimes when people knock his actors and be like, oh, they can't really act. And I be like, no, they actually are really nailing it because most likely, especially on his series, they're improv-ing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're improv-ing that and they're shooting 3-4 hour-long episodes in a day.
Yeah, in a day.
They're not memorizing all that dialogue. They are winging it. So when you realize that they improv-ing, and they just getting into character and they just going, they're actually talented.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of times people got to understand, that's another thing about being filmmakers, we understand is like sometimes the actors are doing a very good job and the script is just weak.
Yeah, they don't have nothing to work with.
What you want them to do? Like you want them to, you know what I'm saying, make wine out of shit? Like it.
You know,
sometimes the scripts are horrible and you can have an accomplished actor that just can't deliver because the lines don't make no damn sense to the actor.
I had a cat ask me to help him produce a film and he gave me a 9-page script. And I said, what the hell? And he's like, yeah. And literally it was scene header, Billy and Sam talk. And then scene 10, Billy is, and I'm like, where's the dialogue? Where's the he's like, oh, Major's gonna come. Just man, we're just gonna let him do what he do.
See, that's that bullshit, man. That's why everybody can't be a filmmaker.
Now, good luck to that person, but I ended up saying, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to wing it together, but I actually look at myself as an artist.
Yeah.
So I need some structure to create something, and you obviously look at this as a hustle.
Yeah.
So we're not going to. Good luck to you.
That's the issue. It's not a big issue. But that is the issue I have with a lot of people that's putting stuff on Tubi. I don't have no problem with independent filmmakers getting their money on Tubi, but it's a lot of trash on Tubi because they're not looking at the art as an art form. Yeah. They're just recording a bunch of niggas doing dumb shit.
With the
selling dope,
just got out of
strippers,
jail.
got out of jail.
I meet up with the homies at the strip club. Man, what I'm gonna do with my life? I need to hit this one last lick to get out the game, or I'm trying to get out the game, but they killed the homie. It's like
I'm tired of seeing the movies.
A couple of little different plot points. Now I'm back at the strip club, this and that.
You always end up back at the strip club.
You know, so it's these particular things, and it's almost like it's a formula, and as long as it's like 70 minutes long, and ta-da,
it works.
We got
it works.
We're out there. And so, you know, sometimes I can chill and just watch them, but sometimes I'll be like, you ever been watching a movie and you can just, you start saying what's going to happen next?
Yeah, you already know what's going to happen.
This whoop-de-whoop, whoop-de-whoop, whoop-de-whoop. I
say that to my wife all the time. I'm like, I already knew what the movie was about when I've seen the first 5 minutes of the movie.
And I know what's going to happen.
The whole movie was about.
Yeah. So it's like, on one hand, as a person that's been doing this for a while, having Tubi is a beautiful thing.
It is.
Because it's increased the income exponentially.
It is.
But the other hand, when you do lower the bar for entry into certain genres, because like right now I shoot with a Black Magic.
Okay.
The 6K.
Good camera.
And it cost me $2,700. The very first movie we did was called Town Biz. Okay. And the camera cost $23,000.
Jeez.
And my Black Magic, you would use that camera as a doorstop while, you know what I'm saying? Because that's how far, but then on the other hand,
technology.
When we first started to have a $20,000 camera, wasn't accessible. So even if you had good ideas, if you had talent as a filmmaker, you just didn't have the equipment to get into the game because you didn't have the money. And now anybody could go to B&H, and even if you got at least a 500 credit score, you could even finance one.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So now everybody can have it. Like right now, somebody could get on B&H or one of them type of websites, and this is Thursday. So by Monday at the latest, you'll have all your lights, cameras, and everything.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And next thing you know, you out there winging together a movie on Tubi.
They don't know how to write no script. They don't know how to develop no characters. They just shooting shit. Mm-hmm. It's saturating the art form. It bothers me a little bit because I don't want the audiences to eventually get used to what they see on Tubi. Yeah. So if me, artistic filmmaker, makes an actual good film,
it's boring.
It's going to be trash to them because they're used to the bullshit on Tubi. That's my only issue. It's like,
hey, and you know, anybody y'all doubt it, when you was 8, if you got the choice between going to Ruth Chris or McDonald's, you're gonna choose McDonald's every single
time. So that's my issue. Yeah. I don't.
And then they put us in a box because, like I was telling them off camera how I had submitted a film about some college women overcoming some obstacles to a particular production company, and they were like, "We like it. We're gonna fund you, but you need to make it more ratchet." And I'm sitting there like, "How can it? I gotta make these accomplished sisters ratchet." That's not even what the movie is about. But as far as this company was concerned, they knew I had the track record to deliver. So that's why they were they wanted to get films in the Black genre. And they knew that if they funded me, they were going to get a finished product.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of people drop the ball. No matter how much funding they get, it never quite get done. But they knew it was going to get done. But I guess me as a Black filmmaker, they needed it to be, even if it was taking place in the heart of a university, they needed some ghetto to it, man. You know what I'm saying?
Because they figured that's what would attract.
But here go the wild part. I got plenty of ghetto films. I'm thinking I'm linking up with them and getting a little bit bigger budget and everything that I can go past that.
Yeah, you can get past it. Yeah.
But they like, no, you're Black. You got to give us.
That's crazy.
Some type of. We got to have some type of ghetto. And I'm sitting there like,
that's crazy.
So we're going to have the head of the BSU at Stanford talk about what's happening with
That's crazy.
But that's the box.
So we get to a point in the movie where Manny and Dave break into the youth center to get some names of the board members because they're assuming that whoever is blackmailing them had to be a board member because they care about the youth center so much. During this break-in, they have a conversation about the kids, and they actually call the kids little gorillas. I can't do no more days with little gorillas. I'm like, damn. For people that don't understand, people say what the hell they felt in the 70s.
Right.
If they felt like calling some black kids gorillas, they called them gorillas.
There was no woke.
No woke culture.
No. No cancel culture.
You might have got called the worst stuff you've ever been called by somebody in your own family.
Right.
It didn't even have to be a stranger. It could be somebody in your family calling you everything but the devil.
We was called porch monkeys.
Oh my God.
We was porch monkeys.
Porch monkeys.
Because we would sit, we'd always be sitting outside and be like, man, if I pull up these porch monkeys on
porch monkeys.
Yeah. Now,
could you imagine in 2024 calling your black students porch monkeys? Oh my God. Viral in a heartbeat.
Oh man. But in fact, we used to have football coaches that would say the wildest stuff to us, right?
Yeah.
And
football coaches didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, wild, and you couldn't even go home and complain. Because it'd be like, whatever that man tell you,
you listen to him. He is the leader of men.
Now, the football coach say, hey, you dogging it. I need a little extra. Oh, he made me feel bad about myself.
Yeah. And he go tell his single mom, and she come back up to the school with that bullshit.
Hey, in front of the school board.
In front of everybody.
They gonna be calling for his job.
She wants him fired because he told her son that he wasn't working hard enough.
Man, the coaches I had when I was a kid, man, I'm surprised somebody ain't went back and sued them.
Oh my God. Yeah. Hey,
I can't wait for them to be on news. Like in 1981, he crushed their self-esteem. But I would probably come up there and be like, hey, they made my skin so thick. It ain't a lot of shit you can say to piss me off.
No, that's the thing that we can always take from the 70s and 80s is that times are so rough and so real that it hardened your skin to where you can survive in any environment. And nothing can hurt you.
Yeah.
Nothing can, and if you from Oakland and you done lost as many partners, I lost my own son, can't nobody hurt me at this point. Whatever life got to throw at me, come on, I'm taking it all.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Let's get to the smoke. I'm about all that smoke.
I know what I'm up against. I can deal with anything.
I can deal with anything. Death, diabetes, divorce. I can deal with it all.
Yeah,
keep it coming.
You can't break. you can't break me, especially not verbally.
You can't break me at all. So we get to a point to where Manny offers the kids $100 a week if they learn how to do a good interview to get a job. And he's talking to them about having better self-pride and self-esteem about themselves. And the kids ain't really taking it serious. They playing around. They doing mock interviews and they kind of just joking and not taking the stuff serious. One of the classmates named Willie, he brings him up to tell us to do a mock interview. And Willie starts telling what's really going on in his home about his little brother, Timothy, who seems to be mentally challenged or whatever and stuff. Right. And Willie tells a story about how his mom says, you're the oldest. It's four siblings. You're the oldest. I need you to go out there and work because the mother doesn't have a job. So you can tell during this mock interview in the classroom, he's not telling a story. He's telling what's going on in his life.
Living it.
And because he started crying. Everybody in the classroom started crying because they started to realize, oh no, he's not playing. He's actually telling you how he's living. Please, can I please have this job? My mama says I'm the man of the house. I'm responsible for all these people in the house.
Yeah.
Which has always been my issue in the black family when I hear, single moms tell 5-year-old boys, you the man of the house because your daddy ain't here no more. Yeah. You don't tell no boy no shit like that. He 5 years old. He gonna grow up with all this damn pressure to take care of your grown ass. You're the adult.
Got to jump off the, and that's was that era though, that man and cats really was dropping out of school in the 7th and 8th grade to get jobs. The oldest girl was literally cooked all the meals, did all the laundry, did everything.
Did
domestic,
all the work.
What I'm saying? And so it
makes you start thinking like, what the hell did the mama do?
Thing. Yeah.
If you had 3 daughters, if you had 6 kids and the oldest 3 was girls and they did all the chores, what the hell did the mama do? Because goddamn, the girl's doing all the cooking and cleaning.
I mean, I look at my own family. The oldest auntie and the oldest uncle literally raised everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
and that happens.
They don't even really have, like, my youngest aunties and my oldest auntie never really even had a sisterly relationship. that was basically mama.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? She whooped him, cooked everything like that. And big bro, he was dad. It wasn't even sibling. Like my father was the oldest, over 8.
Gotcha.
And he was already working at 14, 15, bringing in the check to pay the rent. Then he had to go to the military and this and that. And he had to send a certain amount of money home. So he was him and my youngest aunt was 20-year age difference.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so they never was really siblings.
Yeah, they never lived together, grew up together.
He was dad.
Yeah, he was dad. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
And I know a lot of people like that, where their oldest they might be the baby of 6 or 7, and the oldest sibling was more like a father figure because the age gap was so huge.
In fact, I saw an interview with what's the boy name? Omar Goody.
Okay.
And he was saying it was 10 years between him and Cuba.
It is.
He saying the mom they was living in hotels, they was doing so bad, so it was Cuba's responsibility to basically make sure he was still alive when mom came home. So Cuba had to whoop him, discipline him.
That's crazy.
They said him and Cuba they were in their 30s. Well, he was in his 30s and Cuba was in his 40s before they started interacting like brothers.
Like brothers, right.
Because they grew up with, he said they wasn't close because he grew up, dude was whooping him.
Yeah.
Dude was the
Cuba handed out the discipline
to
Omar, you know,
because
there was no man present,
And so he's like that. He said I was in my 30s before me and him one day kicked it, and that's when we was kind of like
on the same level,
became brothers.
Yeah.
He had for kids, you know what I'm saying. But growing up and into adulthood, he wasn't my big brother. He was the dad of the house. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So we get to a point to where Dave and Mrs. French go out on a date, and Detective Burke is following them, and he's watching them and stuff. And she basically likes Dave, but Dave kind of is using her to get information about who's blackmailing him and stuff like that. He's using her to get more information about these board members because he knows for a fact somebody on that board or in the past on the board is responsible for what's going on with him. And it's weird because they have her kind of airheaded a little bit. Like she don't understand that she's getting played. She seemed like such a smart lady the whole entire movie. But when it comes to Dave, she clearly does not see what he's trying to do to her. Like how he's trying to kind of use her.
She was a classic beauty.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think she ended up playing on Heat of the Night and some other stuff. If I'm not mistaken, that same lady played Mrs.
And
French.
her husband was the dude who played the dance instructor on the 5 Heartbeats.
Really?
He was a famous dancer back then. The Nicholas brothers.
The Nicholas brothers. Like in the 40s, like way back in the day. Right. Wow, I did not know that.
And was even at one point married to Dorothy Dandridge.
Wow. Wow. That's deep.
Harold Nicholas, that's his name.
Harold Nicholas? Okay, so we get to the next scene where Manny takes the class on a field trip to teach them about common courtesy. They start to understand and realize what he's trying to teach them. It's life skills. It's more life skills. So
the light bulb comes.
The light bulb, right? So he has one of the students go up and rudely ask the doorman or the customer service person about a job in the building, and the customer service person kind of pushes him off, like, get out of here and blah blah blah. Then he had another classmate go up in a suit and being very polite and courteous and asking the same question. And that customer service person in the building is treating them with the same amount of respect and courtesy to teach them that if you be kind to people and act accordingly, it will come back the same way. If you go up there ghetto, I need this job, show me where it's at, they're going to give you that energy back.
Yeah.
So this experiment kind of showed the kids like, oh, he kind of knows what he's talking about. And maybe we should start listening. I feel like after that field trip, the light bulb came on all the kids.
I went to high school in the 80s, and we had home economics.
I remember that.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember that.
And that's what many of us learned, how to write a check.
Yep.
Yes, sir. They walk on the outside where you walk. Like, it was more than just home economics. It was etiquette, you know what I'm saying? And I remember some of my girl cousins actually went to etiquette classes. You you know what I'm saying, where you learn what fork to use at the dinner, you know, how you supposed to sit at a table, don't put your elbow. I mean, really like
etiquette class.
Because many of us, unfortunately, didn't learn these things at home. So they would put us in classes to give us some hope of surviving in society.
Yeah. Because you're going to be around different people, different backgrounds, and you stand out when you don't know which salad fork is the actual salad fork. Or you eating spaghetti the wrong way and you slopping it up like a pig. Like, people look at you a certain way. You don't know how to eat food the correct way.
Right.
But it's not really, that's why I've never blamed nothing on my parents. They only taught me what they were taught. So, you know, coming from our era, we could never, it's not fair for us to blame our parents, because look who our grandparents were. They didn't
never even went to restaurant.
Know a lot. You know what I'm saying?
I get my twins, I'm going to the restaurant. Hey, lady, hey. Somebody said, excuse me, ma'am. Oh, excuse me, ma'am. Yes. We're like, oh, she heard me the first time. Yeah, but she wasn't going to respond to you yelling, hey, lady.
Hey, lady, right. Correct.
Excuse me, ma'am. Yeah. Excuse me, sir. I didn't literally learn that. I was 20-something with someone had to.
It makes a difference.
Had to be like, I'm like, oh, wow, I've been in restaurants for years.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Probably looking like the biggest jackass.
Looking crazy.
And I'm not a jackass, but probably was looking like one, but I didn't know how to carry myself.
Yeah, looking crazy. Yeah. So Dave, Miss French, Nikki, and Manny go out on a date, and something happens that night. Miss French finally gives up the yammies. And it was weird because he walked her to her door. She said goodnight, gave him a kiss. She went inside and closed the door. Dave just stood there at the door.
He knew. That was that ism.
He knew that night it was going down. So he stood there about 30 seconds, 40 seconds. She opened that door, opened it a little wider, and without saying any words, that was like, come on in.
Now, art doesn't imitate life, though, because in real life, you'd have been still standing on the other side.
You'd have been still standing on there. One of her neighbors would have been like, stalker.
Yeah, like, hey, can I help you?
Yeah, what you standing there for? But he stood there with a smile on his face, kind of knowing that she was going to open that door back up.
That's the smooth operators in the 70s.
Oh, he was smooth. He was smooth. He was super smooth. So
you got to send that text now, like, hey, I'm still out here.
Yeah, it's a different ball game. So Mrs. French finally tells Dave about Detective Burke in a weird way. Like, she explains her mentor was and who her husband is. And then he kind of puts two and two together because he's a smart guy. And they figure out that Detective Burke is the detective who's been blackmailing this whole time. Now, let's get to this whole blackmailing thing. You want to blackmail me and my criminal partner to go teach some kids instead of you teaching the goddamn kids? Why the fuck you didn't go to the youth center? Why you want me to dedicate all my time to these badass kids?
I assumed it was penance. Like, y'all got away with heavy dirt for so long. You're gonna pay some dues to society.
I mean, I guess that would, but I'm glad that at some point in time in the movie, Mrs. French checked Detective Burke and said, your wife wouldn't have done it that way. Because he said, well, that's what she would have done. She was like, no, she wouldn't have. She would not have done it that way. She wouldn't have blackmailed people into helping these kids.
Yeah.
Like, what you did was wrong, bro. Like,
yeah,
you can't blackmail people.
I hear your intentions.
Yeah, we get your intentions.
Yeah.
But you blackmailed somebody to make two people who clearly did not want to be with these kids.
The little gorillas.
They clearly want to have nothing to do with these kids. You made them do it with the threat of going to prison. Your wife would not have done that, sir.
Yeah, it wasn't noble at all.
It was not a noble thing for you to do. And he just stood there like, he never even apologize. So he's like, oh. It's like, dude, at least apologize and say, I fucked up. I did it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
That never came out of his mouth, which lets you know that Detective Burke was one of those, I stand on business. This is what I did, and this is what it's going to be. Like, this is what I did.
Even though if it's wrong, it's two left shoes, but hey.
So the black lady who helped in the first robbery of the mob people, she gets caught by Bruno in Denmark, Copenhagen. They find this black woman in a whole nother country, fly her back
with no internet.
With no internet. It's 1977.
And I'm assuming under a different name.
Under a whole different name. They find her, bring her back, use her as bait to find Manny, which is the dude who ripped him off. So somehow she knows about the youth center. She knows who Manny's girlfriend is. And none of this shit made sense.
Divine coincidence.
It's like, how would she know where Manny is volunteering his work at? How did they know that?
She went on his Instagram.
I guess she went on his 1977 Instagram.
First one with it.
How would they know who Manny's girlfriend is? She don't even come to the youth center. She had never been to the youth center. You wouldn't even know what that woman looks like.
We just gonna let them cook.
So it was so many. It's like, those things like, I want to love this movie so much. It's a perfect classic, but it's hard to make. It was too many flaws, and it's just like, if they would have just tuned up the screenwriting just a little bit and explained some stuff.
Hey, just like those soap operas, they want to write somebody off or replace them. They have a car wreck, and then the scars that come out, it's a new person, and it's they had plastic surgery.
Oh my God!
And sometimes you just gotta let them cook.
So Bruno, who's the mafia boss, says he wants his $475,000, which is a lot of damn money. 1970 might be like a couple of million now.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, easily. Mm-hmm. So Bruno says, "I want my $475,000." They had already kidnapped Manny's girlfriend Nikki, and they was holding the black lady ransom. They eventually meet up after Dave and Manny rob another place and get some money. It was kind of weird, man, because it's like they robbed a management company and got 2/3 of the money. Then they go to a monastery to get some ledgers, some paperwork showing the illegal companies that Bruno was dealing in that could pretty much put him in prison. So they get all this stuff together, put it in a suitcase to go get Nikki, who they have. They go there, they make the exchange. They have this another long dialogue drawn out scene.
We got a filler
with Bruno and Manny, where Manny's explaining what's going on and Bruno explaining, I don't care, we about to kill you pretty much. And he kept calling him boy. And at one point in time, Manny calls Bruno a titty sucker. And it pissed him off. Guns came out. He was like, I don't want to know what you say, a titty sucker. It was like everybody in the room froze. I don't know what titty sucker meant in 1977. But it pissed him off when he called him a titty sucker. So Bruno tells Manny, basically, you jumped in a business of grown men. You shouldn't have jumped in. Manny tells him that I basically got 25 copies of these ledgers all over town. And if something happens to me, blah, blah, blah. So they get Nikki back. Everything is fine. And Bruno lets him go after asking him, so what happens if you die of like a heart attack or something like that? And Manny's like, we just gonna have to see.
Yeah.
you better hope.
You better pray for my good health.
Pray that nothing happens to me because these ledgers will get out and you'll pretty much go to jail. So the movie ends with the students presenting Miss French and Miss Thomas with awards because we're to assume they've all gotten jobs. It was 30 jobs, 30 kids. So Manny's job was to work with the kids on how to present themselves. And Dave's job, Bill Cosby, was to get the 30 jobs. So we're to assume that they did all that in 3 weeks in 1977. It's fucking amazing. It's amazing if you did that in 2024 with the internet.
Start the job program and get all 30 kids on somewhere.
All 30 kids got a job?
In fact, they would feature you in the national media. And people will want you to come duplicate this program in other cities.
All 30 kids got jobs. And miraculously, all 30 kids kind of understood the assignment at the end of the movie. Like, oh, they were here to help us.
Light bulbs really went on.
Yeah, it's like the whole time they were the teachers were the enemy.
Yeah.
Then at the end, they were like, oh, you guys really helped us.
It only takes 21 days to change a life.
To change the entire life. So Miss French gets a necklace and looks like pottery made by Timothy, who was Willie's younger, mentally challenged brother. That's what they gave her. And Miss Thomas got the same necklace and a collection of Stevie Wonder albums, which
the
was
collected works of Stevie Wonder,
which was huge back then. Stevie was the man. Stevie was multi-platinum, Grammy Award winning stuff. It's like giving somebody all the Drake albums right now.
I was always my favorite. It's the collected works of Stevie Wonder.
Collected works. And Barbara presented Miss Thomas with that. So we have a moment where Barbara, getting back to Barbara.
Good old Barbara.
We never know why she's angry. But in this moment, when she gives it to her, Miss Thomas starts to cry. Barbara starts to cry. But Barbara has the look of, I want to apologize, but she never apologizes. And
intentions.
Right. So I'm wondering why the director, and if, maybe I can find why you never had Barbara just apologize. You know you hurt this woman's feelings that particular day. You basically broke her down to a child. She ran out of the classroom crying. You know how you hurt her that day. Why in this tender moment where y'all both crying without speaking, y'all both feeling energy, why didn't the director just have her say, I'm sorry? Just them 2 words, I'm sorry. So Ernest Thomas's character said, you two break it up. And he kind of pulls her out of the whole mode.
The sappy moment.
Yeah, the sappy moment. But it kind of made me think like why they just didn't. That would have been a perfect bow tie on the story if they just had Barbara say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean what I said.
But they had a character so ridiculous that her even looking as if an apology was an option was a huge development for when she first started. Right. Nice. And I don't know. I just feel like even with Willie's character, when he had that moment talking about his home life and his brother Timothy, like you could have took that same time or half of the Willie time and gave Barbara that time. And we could have explained the whole Barbara situation since she had the most damn dialogue in the entire class. Like between her and Ernest Thomas, they had the most dialogue out of all the kids. Like, but you didn't explain why she was so angry. But you let Willie ended up having the biggest careers out of all the kids.
And they had the biggest careers. But you let Willie walk from the back of the classroom. He never said nothing the whole entire film to have this long dialogue about Timothy.
Funny thing is, Willie was probably the biggest name at that moment. And I let me have my moment, baby.
Correct.
Now I'm back in the cast. It's an ensemble.
So the movie ends. Everybody start dancing and the credits roll. It's a wrap. So
funny thing though about that is as they're dancing, Bill ends up dancing with this overweight chick.
With the big girl.
They do the bump. And every time they do the bump, he pretends to fly across the room. And he comes back in, boom. And all I could think about was last time I watched this, like, man, if they did that now,
oh my God,
it would be so many people would be offended.
They'd be pissed.
Because he's obviously making a mockery of her size.
He's making it seem like she's so big, she's throwing him across the room with the bump.
And they did it multiple times, like, ha, ha, ha. And last time I watched it, I was thinking, like, man, if they did that now, someone would point out that was really crass.
But here's what's crazy about that, though. She wasn't really that big compared to now.
Not at all. Not at all.
She was actually a regular sized woman.
And they should have got a waist snatch to get 1 million followers on IG.
Like, she wasn't really big enough for Bill Cosby to actually have to do all that extra flying around the room. Now, if you're going to do it, you need to have a big.
Right.
But she wasn't really that big for him to be doing all that.
But just think, though, is that, like, if somebody did that in 2023, it'd have been like, oh, we can't put that.
Well, even now, if you're a director, screenwriter director, and you have an actor, and you say that I hired you to play this role, and the role was described as an ugly, overweight person, they might have an issue with that in 2024.
Yeah. In fact, you better not actually put it in the
you better not put it in the script
because it will get put on the net and you'll be called out for it.
Yes. That's what's so weird. It's like, as a screenwriter, you got to be careful about how you describe characters that you want people to play. Because they're going to be like, you know, you might hire a dude to play a gay guy, and he might come back at you like, well, so what are you trying to say? I look like I'm gay? Like, you never know what people gonna say.
Yeah, you don't want to fall into anything where somebody can say you're stereotyping.
Correct. So it's kind of weird where we're at now in filmmaking, in society in general.
Mm-hmm. You got to be very cautious.
You have to be very cautious of what you say, how you present it to people. If you're going to have a woman be, you know, sassy, you got to explain her sassiness because she might have an issue with it. Why you got me playing this black woman talking all this shit and all that? Like, it can become an issue now.
Yeah. If you have those conversations, have them verbally. And please make sure you're not being recorded. You need plausible deniability.
You do. So wrapping this film up is one of my favorites from childhood. Mm-hmm. It's one that I used to watch with my parents. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand it back then, but I understand it now. Yes, it does have its flaws. Yes, it does have its things in there. It just don't make no sense. Certain things happen that just don't make no sense.
Too convenient. Too convenient.
But I still love it. It will always be a classic to me. Not a perfect classic, just a classic in the sense of what a classic is. So I'm going to ask you this. On a scale from 1 to 10, what do you rate a piece of the action?
I give it a solid 7.
Solid 7? Yeah, that's fair. See? Yeah. Filmmakers, we rate shit the right way.
7. Because despite its flaws, it works.
It does. And I kind of agree. Now, you just shocked me with the 7. I was going to give it a 8. Yeah. I'm going to give it a solid 8.
Those convenient moments that move the story forward, as you're watching it, especially when you watch them when you're younger, it's entertaining. As you watch it as a filmmaker, you be like,
yeah.
But you still like it. But you're still going to be like, come on. And out of the whole trilogy, it is number 3.
Correct.
I agree. What I'm saying? It is number 3. But I do kind of wonder why they didn't come back and, at least in the 80s, give us a number 4. Or even in the early 90s, why they didn't give us the 4th one.
That's true. I
don't know if they ran out of gas by that time creatively, but if they'd gave us another one in the 80s or even the early 90s, it still could have worked.
I agree.
I would love to speak to somebody about, like, was there some behind the scenes drama or something, like why they didn't go to the well again?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Sometimes as a director, we think about stuff like that. Like, even when I found out the little tidbit about Will Smith wanting to remake it, I'm like, why didn't that happen?
Yes.
It seemed like that would have been a perfect hugely thing.
Successful.
It would have been huge.
I don't know. Maybe Eddie might have been reluctant, because I know that was the original goal of Harlem Nights, was to make this mega film with all the legends, Red Fox,
which it
Richard
was,
Pryor, this and that, and him and Richard Pryor actually ended up falling out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And they never got back cool.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, they actually fell out on Harlem
during the shoot of Harlem Nights. I did not know that.
And because Richard Pryor was Eddie Murphy's idol.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what even Robert Townsend, like, if you pay attention watching Harlem Nights, I mean, not Robert Townsend, he died. Baby Kids.
Oh, Robin Harris.
Yeah, like, if you really look around, everybody's in that movie.
Yes, everybody.
You know what I'm saying?
But, everybody.
Yeah, but apparently they fell apart. And they never made up.
I did not know that. Damn, that's deep. Okay, so the name of the show is The Main Ingredient. So, in your opinion, what was the number one main ingredient in this film that made you feel the way you feel about the film, that made you love it or hate it? What was the number one thing?
The one thing I love is that the significance of Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby on the screen together. Yeah. That was just always magical. Like Uptown Saturday Night was my mother's favorite movie.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But the rest of my family liked, Let's Do It Again. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of default went to, I like a piece of action. But the thing is that seeing them movies and seeing them two dudes, especially at they peak. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They was huge. I mean, Bill went to a whole nother dimension.
Yeah, Bill went
show after that, but they were both huge. Yeah. And they both meant, like, if I saw Sidney Poitier on the screen, it was me like, man, that's Sidney Poitier.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm older now, I'm more jaded, so there's not a lot of cats that can walk across the screen now. And I'd be like, man, go ahead.
Yeah. Not a lot.
As a kid in the 70s, seeing Sidney Poitier, and of course Bill Cosby with the Cosby Kid, he was larger than life to me. You know what I'm saying? That's why it'd be so tragic, you know, how when the curtain was revealed behind the wizard.
What he was really about.
But at that stage of my life, when that dropped, and even as a teenager, young adult, seeing Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier on the screen, just doing their thing.
Yeah.
They wasn't necessarily cooning. They wasn't shucking and jiving.
No, they wasn't cooning at all.
There was nothing for me to watch and be embarrassed of. Like, oh, man, they went out.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the main ingredient of why seeing two raw brothers doing their thing unapologetically that's the main ingredient for me. Yeah,
my main ingredient for this is almost the same thing. It's like seeing those two with a young James Earl Jones at their height in the film together that reached this amount of success. That was major for me to see as a young black kid. And I remember seeing the trilogy, all 3 of their movies with my parents, and my parents just enjoying the moment.
And nothing to be embarrassed of.
Nothing to be embarrassed about.
No cooning,
none of that.
It was just good entertainment.
Yeah, it was just great entertainment. They did their thing in the 70s when black men in general didn't get that opportunity in Hollywood to, you know, because the blaxploitation thing was one thing, but these were major movies that they were making together.
So it was like it was on that wave, but more better made.
More better made, a little bit more money.
Talent, you know, just bigger.
Just bigger. Which means Hollywood at some point in time had to trust them enough to give them that much freedom to make these type of movies and not put them in that blaxploitation category.
That was the main thing to me is that no matter what was going on, Sidney always carried himself with a certain level of dignity.
Sure did.
And Bill, you know, with the educational thing and the you know, the Cosby Show and everything like that, he was a hero for us.
Yes,
somebody that comes along, maybe that's born in say the late 90s, he just was a character, and now he's this abysmal person. But for somebody born in my era, Bill was. That's the reason why there's people to this day that no matter what they convict him of, no matter what, this and that, they still can't bring themselves to talk down on him.
Oh, yeah. Because some people feel the same way about Michael Jackson.
He was a hero.
R. Kelly. Like some people feel some of these artists have meant so much to the average person that they can't turn their backs on them, no matter what they hear about them.
Separate the art from the art.
Yeah, they can't separate it.
If you're a younger person, then some of these people are just jokes or mockery to you already, so they don't have the same cultural significance. Yeah. Bill and Sidney meant something.
Oh, big time.
You know what I'm saying?
Big time. Yeah. And in the days of coonery and, you know, because Jimmy Walker caught a lot of hell for doing the JJ character because he was basically a clown. And for these two guys to be smart dudes who could pull off height, sharp. They had all the girls. You know, they had the baddest chicks for that time. They were still funny. That was big for black people to see that, see that representation in the 70s where it was hard to see that type of representation because most black men back then was playing the crooks or the robbers, you know, the thug on the street. And these two dudes were suited up.
Almost some modern version of Step and Fetch It or something. There wasn't no Step and Fetch It.
Yeah, it was a little bit different. So yeah, it was an incredible movie. I love it. I will always love it.
I'm gonna watch it again tonight.
Yeah, you know. But I thank you for coming, Pharoah.
Yes, indeed.
I thank you for reviewing this classic movie with me and having this discussion and breaking it down and adding the tidbits.
Yeah. And it's good to talk to a cat that's going to look at it the same way I do. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Iron sharp as iron. So it's good to be able to talk to a fellow filmmaker about something.
For sure. So tell the people where they can reach you.
Well, you can reach me across the board on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that at Pharoah Films.
Okay.
I keep it simple.
Okay. And as always,
TikTok too.
TikTok too. Pharoah Films at TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay, Pharoah Films. You said it, Pharoah Films at TikTok. But as always, I'm Chris Ellis, your host, and this is The Main Ingredient with Chris Ellis. We'll catch you next time. Peace.